Cuba, it's me. Welcome to episode 296 of the W.I.L.L.I.W show, which stands for Wrestling is Life. Life is Wrestling. And today, I'm continuing my profile on every province in Canada and their wrestling scene by going to the very famous Quebec. What do you know about the history of Quebec wrestling? Do you follow the current scene there? Have you ever watched any wrestling from Quebec? Have you ever wrestled yourself in Quebec? I want to know. Now, I did a bit of an internet search and I found there's quite a few wrestling going on right now. They have interspecies wrestling, International Wrestling Syndicate, FLQ, which is like Federation Lutte Quebec, basically. I think I'm saying it right. I apologize if I'm not. My French is not very sharp. There's Northern Championship Wrestling. There's NCW Femmes Fatales. I apologize if I'm butchering this. There's North Shore Pro Wrestling and LDDC are the current promotions. Quebec has a very long history of a lot of promotions that have run there, some very famous ones. A lot of famous wrestlers have wrestled there, got their start there, a lot of famous families there, a lot of famous people that grew up there, and a lot of famous wrestlers, I mean. And basically, I looked it up and it said International Wrestling Association started in the 1930s. And then there was Grand Prix Wrestling and Lutte International. I believe Andre the Giant was either the owner or the booker of that for 3 or 4 years. And so let's take a look at some of the most famous families there. Without a doubt, the Vachon family is famously from Quebec. Where do we go? Mad Dog Vachon, Luna Vachon, all the Vachons. There's so many, and they've all been great and all a huge part of the history. There's the really famous Leduc family, Paul Leduc. I personally know Carl Leduc. He helped me immensely back in about, I think it was 2002, maybe 2003. He came to the training school and he just blew my mind with things that I didn't even think of to worry about in wrestling. We knew all the chain wrestling and all that and all the moves and stuff, but he really helped me with my psychology, and to this day I'm grateful for him. And I had a chance to run into him the last year or so. He made his way out there, and it was great to see him. He was such a class act to me, and he still is, and I consider him a good friend. But the Leduc family, wow, they have an amazing history. Then there's the Rougeaus. The Rougeau brothers were a tag team in the WWF. The one Rougeau still does commentary, French commentary there on for the WWE, and Jacques Rougeau helped train a lot of people as well. So those are three of the most famous families associated in Quebec wrestling, and they have tremendous history and respect there. Then we got some of the wrestlers, like Pat Patterson was from there, and he's done very well for himself in the wrestling business. Ivan Koloff. Uh, what about Dino Bravo? Rest in peace. We got a lot of them that are passed away, unfortunately. But we are very been blessed to have some great talents that came from out of Quebec there and did some big things. Chris Benoit grew up in Montreal. Rick Martel grew up in Quebec. Terry Garvin. Lufisto is a very famous wrestler who I don't know if she ever made the WWE, but she's very famous on the independent scene. Maurice, who was a wrestler and a manager of The Miz, came from that area. Currently, we have Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, who are grew up in Quebec and started their wrestling in Quebec, who are really on the top of the card there on SmackDown, doing well for themselves. Just so much great wrestling. I'm probably missing Jean Pierre Carl Lefet. I don't know if I'm saying Ouellette. I could be saying it wrong, but he was one half of the Quebecers. He was from out there, and like with me, the language barrier. I'm not very good at French, like I said, so it's hard for me to understand what the announcers are saying. But I've seen some great matches in Quebec wrestling, and I've always wanted to wrestle in Quebec, which I have never done. Some of my friends have, and they've said good things about it out there. There's a great scene. It's always closely followed by the Scouts because there's such a history of their producing great talents that They always have someone out there checking out. I know Patterson is still very loyal to the scene out there. And so, just like I said, I want to hear from you guys. What do you know about the history of Quebec wrestling? Have you watched any Quebec wrestling? Have you ever wrestled out in Quebec? And how closely do you follow the current scene? I know FLQ is partnering here with Smash Wrestling in Ontario, or they did at least for a couple shows, and some of their talent is getting onto the Fight Network or Fight TV. I could be wrong. I know it's Fight something, but they're doing. It airs after Impact Wrestling. I know that. So let's hear from you guys, because as always on the Willow Show, like or you get a leg drop, comment or you get a clothesline, subscribe or you get a suplex. I'm your host, Elian Habanero. I love wrestling. Cuba.